Welcome back. As you may or may not know, I'm known as Eli the Computer Guy, and I currently run something called silicondojo.com, which is free to the end user technology education. Basically, the concept being of what if high quality education was simply as available as running water. But anyways, part of that project is I do question and answer sessions with my students. So every Monday between 1 to 5, I do somewhere between 3 to 6 of these sessions where I have one-on-one conversations for about 30 minutes with folks to talk to them about their careers and creating businesses and infrastructure and architecture and all of those kinds of different things. Anyways, I get the same types of questions many times during those sessions, so I've decided to do a series of videos just talking about basically the frequently asked questions that I get. So the latest one that people will not stop talking about is, Eli, is AI going to destroy coding jobs? Is it even worth learning how to code now that AI exists? And yeah, that question just gives me a headache. The question gives me a headache. And the question doesn't give me a headache because young people are asking it, right? That's a good question, right? If you're an 18-year-old, if you're a 20-year-old going through college, you're going $100,000 into debt for this degree program, you should ask the question whether or not you are getting the skills that will allow you to simply repay the loans, much less be able to pay off a mortgage and that type of thing. My bigger frustration here is that the old school people in the technology world are feeding in to this horse crap to make the young people scared, and it just makes me want to lose my damn mind. Basically, we've already been through this whole thing many times in the past, and what I can tell you is basically you should still know coding even in the world with AI. It may affect your job. You may lose your job, or you may lose the job or the opportunity to have the job that you thought you were going to get. But in a long career, it is just going to be a blip. Right? That's the thing about the technology world. One of the things I get so frustrated with the technology world, right? You get the alpha bros, the alpha, the programmers or whatever they're called. And they're all talking about how technology changes at the speed of light. And you have to be so smart to stay on top of this kind of stuff. And you have to be visionaries to be in our field. And then one damn technology comes out of left field, and they're all crying and ripping their hair out and going, oh, what are we gonna do? We're gonna do what we did last time, and the time before that, and the time before that, and the time before that, right? One of the things I think about with AI goes back to the year 2000, right? So if you are in the Western world, especially if you're in the United States, and you're watching this video, I mean, the good thing about watching this video is you don't even have to ask this question because coding already died in the United States. Don't you know that? In 2005, coding was no longer viable to do in the United States. Ergo, no American has learned to code in almost 20 years. Now, for the young people out there, you're like, crap, what's Eli even talking about? I don't understand. What happened in 2005? It actually happened in 2000, right? So we had something called the Y2K bug. I remember when we all thought the world was going to end over that. And it also didn't end either. Anyways, there was this issue with timestamps. For some reason, when they originally created the timestamps, they weren't thinking about legacy applications lasting for decades and decades and decades. And so there was this issue where when the year flipped over to 2000, systems using this old type of timestamping system, there was just going to be a whole... Wow, this is just a place for dog fights. So the guy has his dog off a leash. The dog attacked another dog, and now he's angry at the dog that got attacked. Anyways, welcome to Miami. Welcome to Miami. Anyways, right, so there's this whole thing with Y2K. So the issue is that dealing with timestamp issues was incredibly boring and tedious, and cool coders didn't want to do it. Don't you know, we have better things to do with our time than make sure our software functions past, January 1st, 2000. So anyways, since none of the cool coders wanted to deal with the whole timestamping issue, what a lot of the large consulting companies, contracting companies realized is they could actually ship code halfway around the world to India using these newfangled things called T1 lines. So we had T1 lines, 1.544 megabits per second, man. Anyways, it's not good for watching YouTube videos, which was fine because we didn't have YouTube videos back then. But if you're just sending essentially text, you're just sending ASCII or UTF-8, text back and forth, then it's fine. And so basically what they did is they shipped all this ASCII text off to India. The Indians, did the boring work. Did the boring but incredibly important work. And what we found out was, wow, in the modern world with these new fiber optic lines, you can literally send intelligent work. So work where you need your brain to do it, you can send this around the world. And so obviously, the world, what it was called? What was called back then? It was called The World is Flat. Was it Krugman? Anyways, one of these big thinkers. That was a big buzzword for a couple of years there, where the world is flat. Ergo, basically all this kind of work, all this work for intelligence or whatever, is going to go to the best people that can do that around the world. They are most likely going to be able to undercut for cost what people here in the United States will be willing to work for. Ergo, the coding industry was dead in 2005. 2005 was the last time any white boy learned how to code in JavaScript. Which obviously is not how it works. Again, and one of the things I want to talk about, I want you to think about, as somebody, I'm getting close to 50 now. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one that's been awake for 50 years, right? Is how we have these big people that pontificate and they write books and they get on the news and everybody, talks about how smart they are. And then 20 years later, nobody remembers it, right? The end of history, right? I am of the Gen X generation. You know why we were called Gen X? We were called Gen X because you had the Depression era generation. My grandparents, Depression era, World War II, they had gone through the roaring 20s, right? Wow, they were an impressive generation. And then they had the baby boomers, right? They got done fighting a world war and they came home and they had a lot of sex. And so we had this boom of a generation called the baby boomers. And then my generation got born. And then my generation got born. Even our parents couldn't be bothered to raise us. We were called the latchkey generation, literally, because my parents would leave home before I went to school in the morning. So I would walk to, again, when I was in grade school, when I was in first grade, I left home after my mother had already left, and I got home before she came home. And yeah, we were just modern dogs get more parenting than the Gen X generation did. Anyways, we couldn't be bothered. They couldn't be bothered to actually parent us. And the idea was with Gen X, that's why it was called Gen X. Gen blank, right? And it was called the end of history, right? And the idea with the end of history is that all the important work had been done. Liberal capitalism, capitalist societies had one history, ergo all the important stuff was done. It's sad. It's sad that nothing important has happened in the world since 1994. That's when I graduated high school. And that's basically what we were told. All the important stuff has already been done. So I guess nobody else has any work to do. Anyways, and yeah, if you've noticed the past 30 years, that definitely has not worked out the way we were told it was going to work out. So anyways, one of the things to be thinking about is you hear these people pontificate and they write books and they make millions and millions of dollars talking about horse crap. talking about horse crap that is demonstrably not true. And so that's what I want you to be thinking about. When we start talking about AI, artificial intelligence, the fact that it's not AI, it is not artificial intelligence. It's models, it's LLMs, and all kinds of different models now. They're coming out with so many acronyms for models. I can't even come up with them or can't even remember them anymore. I need a little ChatGPT thing to remind me all the model names at this point, right? But anyways, we come out with this stuff, and so now people are pontificating that it's the end of coding. You're not going to need to know how to code anymore. But I think one of the interesting things to look back at is, again, what happened with the Indians? What happened with the outsourcing of coding from the United States around the world, and why that didn't quite pan out the way we were all told it was supposed to pan out. And the main thing came out to is $200,000 a year for a coder actually is not very expensive. One of the things you don't think about is when you think about large projects, multi-million dollars, tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, the reality is things like labor cost for individual coders actually end up rather not being that significant. Right? Because you can pay an Indian $10,000 to do quote unquote the same work that somebody in the United States would get paid $200,000 for. But what you find out it's not the same work, right? When you're dealing with people in India, literally the worldview is different. Again, go to India. I spent 4 months backpacking through India. God bless India. It's a whole different world. It's a different world than the one I came from. Holy hell. You have cows just walking down the middle of the road. Why is there a cow walking down the middle of the road? Well, it's a cow. Where else are they supposed to walk? What? Anyways, one of the issues that came up is when they outsourced so much of this work is that things like communication barriers. Although Indians speak English, they speak Indian English, which is different. Actually, to be honest with you, it's easier to understand than Scottish English, but it's still different. They speak different English. They have different worldviews. They have different considerations on how things should be done, how things should be accomplished, communication, all kinds of different things. And so why a lot of the coding started getting what's called reshoring, basically started getting brought back to the United States, is what people found out is that the cost for project management and delays and weird ass quirky issues and all that kind of stuff was too high. It was less expensive to pay somebody in the United States $200,000 a year when there was a cultural fit. Everybody was more or less on the same wavelength. And so it was easier to actually get projects out the door and to be able to make money off those projects. And now we have lots and lots and lots of coders in the United States who don't even think about Y2K, and they don't even understand the concept of the world is flat, and they don't realize how valuable things like T1 lines were back, 25 years ago. And so when we talk about, AI, and we talk about taking over coding, what you hear a lot now is that people can create, entire startups simply using AI. Right? That's what you hear. The first unicorn startup is going to be like one person with a whole bunch of AI agents. And that sounds great, man. If you're going to blog, if you're going to do a YouTube video, that's the YouTube video you do. You don't do this YouTube video. All right, that's a YouTube video you do. Because it's like, yeah, people buy into that garbage. But here's the thing. If you actually deal with AI, and you actually deal with actual intelligence, have you ever dealt with human beings? That's the cute thing. That's a cute thing with geeks. Geeks are like, yeah, I'm going to use AI to do all this work. That's like, wow, if you had actually dealt with humans a little bit more, maybe you'd realize the problem there. But anyways, the problem is once you start moving all this stuff over to AI, the question becomes what is the thinking process going to be when your AI is designing all of your code? What is the thinking process going to be when your AI designs architecture? What is the thinking process going to be when it comes up with your business plan? Like, that's one of my most frustrating things I get so frustrated about. So again, I'm in Asheville. Right now I'm in Asheville. I will be in Miami most likely soon. Anyways, we have an AI meetup there. And one of the weird things when I go to the AI meetup is they talk about how AI can create your marketing plan for you. and AI can create your business plan for you. And then I'm in the back of the room beating my head against the wall over this stupidity. And you're like, but Eli, I don't understand. AI can do the marketing plan for you. Eli, I've seen marketing plans done by AI. They're actually pretty good. Eli, I've seen marketing plans or business plans done by AI. They're actually pretty good. Yeah, but what you're seeing is not the work. What you're seeing is essentially the output that gets created when you do the real work. Again, you know how I talk about, you got to face the spaghetti monster, you got to face the person in the mirror, you have to figure out what the hell it is that you're actually doing. Guess what writing a business plan does? Jackasses. This is the Eli the Computer Guy channel, so I'm not going to be trying to be too mean here. I'm not going to be trying to be too snarky. What do you think the actual point of writing the business plan is? Do you think the point of writing a business plan is getting 4 or 5 pages of some crap so you can show that to your mommy or daddy or professor or mentor to say, look what I can get a prompt to do? No. Doing the business plan forces you to think about what the hell you are doing. Again, when you have a business, you have a product. What is the product that you're selling? What are the costs for that product? What are the expected revenue and ergo the profit for that product? What are the known problems that you think you're going to run into? What do you imagine the unknown problems that you might run into? What about all of this other stuff, right? That 5 or 10 or 50 pages that AI spits out, that work is worthless if you're not sitting there and creating, because the value there is that you have gone through that thought process. Again, when you create a marketing plan, or you don't create the marketing plan, AI creates the marketing plan. Do you really understand why you're doing the things that you're doing? Can you argue your own damn marketing plan? So let's say you go to AI, and let's say AI spits out this 10-point or 20-point marketing plan. And let's say you go to your mommy and daddy, and let's say your mommy and daddy actually do a half an ounce of job of parenting, because you're not a Gen Xer, you're a millennial, and everybody cared about the millennials, right? Anyways, what if they look at that business plan and like, yeah, I don't understand point 5. Point 5 doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain to me point 5? And you're like, well, as it says in the thing, point 5 is X, Y, or Z. Well, yes, but as somebody that's been in the business world for 20 years, as long as you've been alive, what I can say is that point 5, the explanation you put at point 5, I don't really actually think that works in the real world. I understand why you would put it down on paper, but I don't think it works in the real world. So what are you going to do if that doesn't work out the way that you think it is? What are you going to do to mitigate problems, right? What are you going to do, blah, blah, blah? Right? Are you going to say, because you didn't put the work in. You had AI create your marketing plan for you, right? And why I talk about this is where we start getting into things like technology and code and infrastructure, right? I talk about architecture a lot. Architecture. I like me some architecture. It's one of the things I'm interested in, right? And one of the big things with architecture is determining where systems should reside. Should systems reside in Azure and AWS, on DigitalOcean? Should you have a cloud system, a private cloud system in your own infrastructure? Should you have a hybrid cloud infrastructure? Again, using something like Azure, so you can flip VMs or whatever from here to there. When you use cloud, should you use a VM of a SQL type, a relational database type server, or should you use a service such as AWS's or Aurora? Which one of these things makes more sense, right? Thinking about the architecture, this is where I talk about things like VidMe. So there was a startup that wanted to compete with YouTube. Unfortunately, it appears that the founders didn't understand a damn thing about architecture, right? So they got $9 million in funding. Hey, 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 investors that gave VidMe $9 million in funding. Call me. Call me. I know something about architecture. Anyways, they got $9 million in funding and they burned through all of it. And one of the things to think about is architecture is that when you're using Azure, AWS, DigitalOcean, compute is dirt cheap and database is dirt cheap, right? Basically, if you're going to build your architecture, put the compute and put the database up on cloud. Here's the thing, storage cost and bandwidth cost is brutal. So AWS back in the day, and I think it still is like 9 cents per gig to get data from their servers out to your user. Now you got a dog in the background. Welcome to Miami. Anyways, right? And so what they did is they built everything. Apparently, they built everything on AWS. And so every time somebody watches a 1080p video, right, that means it costs 9 cents per gig stream. So a 1080p video, an hour of 1080p video is about 3 gigs. So if you watch a 1 hour 1080p video on VidMe, it costs them 27 cents per stream. Per stream. Now here's the thing, right? If you go to a co-location facility, you can actually rent rack space or an entire rack, and it'll cost you somewhere between $1,000 to $10,000 per month. But that is a fixed cost. So now, back then, you could get a gig for $1,000 to $10,000 bandwidth, which would give you 300 concurrent streams at 1080p, at least. Anyways, right? So, right, that was the cost there. So basically, you could rent a rack, or you could rent portions of a rack. You could fill that rack with the servers that you needed. So you're talking about, let's say, $10,000 a month in fixed fee, plus another $50,000 to $100,000 in actual asset cost in order to get all the equipment into the rack, right? And so that wouldn't be too bad. $100,000 up front plus $120,000 a year, and that would be your storage and your streaming cost, right? But no, they put it on AWS and they burned through cash. Now, why I'm talking about all of this is the kind of thing that I want you to be thinking about as a technology professional. When you go to AI and you tell AI to write you code, when you tell AI to write configuration files, when you tell AI to do your damn job for you, at the exact same time you're expecting to get a high salary from it, how do you think that is going to work out, right? It's not going to work out. One of the things I used to tell my employees, right, is as a professional, our job is to answer the questions the client does not know to ask. It is not good enough, right? It is truly not good enough to simply say the client didn't ask the question, therefore it's not my responsibility, right? They're not computer professionals. They didn't know to ask that question. They didn't know there was a difference between speed and latency, right? Hey, you got a gig connection, but your latency is 200 milliseconds, right? You tell them you got a gig connection, they figure that's good enough. They don't understand why their VoIP systems aren't working, right? When you go to AI systems, are they actually going to give you those recommendations? Are they going to push back? Are they going to give you multiple options for how your infrastructure should be created and be able to have a back and forth with those systems to figure out what the best thing to do is? Is the AI going to do preventive maintenance, right? Proactively look into your systems to verify that they're doing what they're supposed to do. Pop up a log file every once in a while and go, why is the latency between these two servers much higher than you figure it would be, right? These are the things that humans do. These are the things that employees do, and this is what your responsibility as a tech professional is. Now, again, it's important to understand that the profession of being a tech professional changes. When I graduated high school in 1994, you can make a lot of money being a VCR repair person. You could go and you could take a 1-month program at the community college. You could learn how to repair VCRs, and you could make bank repairing VCRs. I had friends who made over $100,000 a year in the 90s simply assembling computers and throwing on pirated operating systems. It happened, right? But again, think about it. Nobody would even think about repairing VCRs anymore. That would be stupid, right? And again, if you look at my career, right? I started in the Army, repairing, green and gray and weirdly brown boxes. All right, doing electronics. But even then, right, when I went through my MOS, my program, right, my MOS was a combination of two MOSs from previously. So there had been an MOS that had been 29 weeks, and there had been an MOS that had been like 33 weeks, and they had combined both of those occupational specialties into one MOS where we went through like 32 weeks of training or something like that. Right? A year after I graduated, they combined my MOS with another MOS, and it was still at about 32 weeks of training. And they just kept doing that because technology got easier to support in the 1990s. Again, you think about it like when I got my MCSE. So I got my MCSE in NT4 back in 2000. Literally, I got my MCSE. About a month after I finished getting my MCSE, they came out with the MCSE for 2000. I was in one of the first boot camps for the MCSE for 2000. I was a month into that damn program and they started talking about Windows XP. Fuck. Anyways, right? Technology moves on. Technology changes. Again, I used to be what's called an Avaya Definity administrator. So Avaya was a telephone system company. They had their Definity series of telephone systems, something called Definity PBX and Definity Onyx. I went through 100 hours of training in those programs for those particular systems. They use something called 110 blocks, and they use something called 66 blocks, and digital and analog telephone lines, and the whole 9 yards, right? And all of those are gone because we're now on VoIP. We're now on voice over IP. Things change. Things move on. Again, I remember when PHP was the greatest language in the world. I remember when everybody loved Visual Basic, right? I remember when Ruby on Rails came out. Oh my golly, you think Node.js people are snotty as hell? Well, I tell you, Ruby on Rails coders, they just thought their poop was gold. I swear to God, if one of them had come out of the bathroom and just given me just a whole handful of his own poop, I wouldn't have been surprised because they knew they were like the creme de la creme. And now, how many people care about Ruby on Rails? They've all moved on to Node.js because don't you know Node.js is the real programming language now, right? And what I want you to understand with this is that technology changes. Right? Here's the thing, right? The VCR repair job disappeared, right? The Windows NT job disappeared. The analog digital telephone system job, more or less. I mean, it's kind of sort of still around, if you're dealing with legacy systems. But let's just say it disappeared. A lot of these things disappeared. Again, computer repair, assembling computers and making a lot of money for doing it, disappeared. Life moves on. Again, if you look at my career, again, back in, so what was it, 96? Yeah, so 96, when I went in the Army, I did electronic repair. That went by the wayside. Got my MCSE, doing that kind of stuff. That went by the wayside. Became a consultant, did those kinds of things. That went by the wayside. Became a YouTuber. All right, 1.1 million subscribers for whatever that means. That is a vanity metric. That is, now it's a vanity metric. It used to be valuable, right? Now it's gone by the wayside because now it's a vanity metric. Now I'm doing SiliconDojo.com. Again, doing this educational thing. What I want you to think, what I want you to hear there though, the jobs went by the wayside. The jobs and the tasks that were required for those jobs became obsolete. My career has continued. I have almost a 30-year career of becoming certified in crap that quickly becomes obsolete. There is a difference between being a technology professional and simply knowing how to code and getting paid to code for a little while. And so the interesting thing is, like, I listen to a lot of people out there, again, especially in the coding world, the people that are actually doing real work, that are actually solving problems. And there's this concept out there I've been hearing, is this whole idea of a coding composer. Well, and the idea here with being a coding composer is that most programming languages basically do the same crap, more or less, right? So, you have your loops, you have your functions, you have your arrays or your lists, your sets, those types of things. You interact with databases, you interact with data stores, you do this, you do that, the other thing. The problem is the syntax. The syntax. Oh, golly, the syntax, right? So PHP, right? You can create a web app in PHP, and you're going to have to type it a specific way. You can create a web app in Python, and you're going to have to write it a specific way. They're both going to have loops and arrays and all that kind of crap, but there's a specific way to write it. Again, you can use JavaScript or Node in order to do it. And the problem that you run into is many times you know what you want to do as a coder, as a professional. You basically understand the concept of what you're trying to do. You're just like, crap, does this one require semicolons? Or does this require spaces? What's the delimiter in this particular coding language? Or again, like I say, if you're trying to connect to a particular thing, you know it connects. You don't quite understand how that connection string works. And so the idea was with a coding composer is that you can sit down, and because you understand the hierarchy, where these different languages sit in the stack, you understand what these different languages are supposed to actually solve for, what they're supposed to actually do. You understand how they're supposed to interact and how they're supposed to be secure and all that kind of stuff. Then you can sit down with AI tools to then start building out your overall application and understand how all of this stuff is supposed to fit together. Again, the whole thing where, think about it as like subcontracting work, right? So if you're going to create a startup company and you're going to create some kind of platform, you may not have to actually code the platform, but by God, you should have somebody on your founding team that knows how to audit the platform. Right? Again, I think about this. There was a startup founder I knew. They had burned through $200,000 in funding, and their app didn't work. It didn't work. Anyways, so I was talking to the person, and I was like, well, and they would not shut up. They would not shut up about how amazing their technical co-founder was. And so this was PHP. So again, this was like 10, 12 years ago. It was PHP. PHP is an easy language. 40 hours, you should be able to learn PHP. Right? Anyways, he would not shut up about how amazing his technical co-founder was. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't care. It's like, look, then you get your amazing technical co-founder to audit the code that's being given to try to verify what's going on, right? Is your code not working because you have permissions issues, right, to the database? That might be a thing. Or is your code not working because the people you handed $200,000 to don't know what the hell they're doing? Right? It was one of those throwaway lines. It was a throwaway line. Get your amazing CTO to audit your PHP code. Eli, he doesn't know PHP. And I'm like, what? Look, your entire platform is being built on PHP. He is your technical co-founder. You will not shut up about how amazing he is. And he can't audit the PHP code. That's a problem. And I think that's going to be one of the big things to be thinking about, again, using these AI systems, is can you audit the code? Can you verify the code is doing what it's supposed to do? Or are you just taking that code, throwing it up on the server, and we'll all see in the next year or two just what a bad idea that was, right? And so I think that's the thing to be thinking about. Again, when we start talking about things like AI going into the future, and we start talking about whether or not you need to learn code, basically, again, it goes back to the whole idea of if you're going to be a technology professional, and if this is going to be your career, then you need to learn how to use technology to solve problems, right? Sometimes you're going to be using Linux, and sometimes you're going to be using Windows, sometimes you're using Python or PHP or Ruby on Rails or Rust or whatever else, right? These are simply tools. They're simply tools. You're not married to any of this, right? They're just very fun one-night stands or one-year stands. Sometimes you're with technology a little longer than you wanted to be. Anyways. And the thing to be thinking about, right, is if you're getting into this to solve problems, then as new technologies come out, you just simply need to figure out how to fold that into your tool bag so that when somebody comes to you to solve a problem, you are now more efficient than you used to be. Again, like for a lot of young folks out there, you have to realize, like, internet didn't exist for my youth, right? I was an adult arguing about whether the internet mattered. Again, I have a story about when a buddy of mine, she told me about online porn, and I just could not grasp the concept. I was in AIT, I was down in Fort Augusta, Georgia. Anyways, right now, Fort Gordon, Georgia. I was in Augusta, I was at her house, and she started telling me about how her and her boyfriend looked at online porn. It was like 1997 or whatever. I just, what? I don't understand. What do you mean? You can use this internet thing and then girly pictures are like on your screen? What? No. What? No, I couldn't get it through my head. Anyways, right? The important thing to understand, the internet was not always a given, right? So when I started, again, like with my MCSE for NT 4.0, right? When we had problems, we were screwed. There used to be something called a TechNet subscription. And those TechNet subscriptions, you paid like $400, $450 a year. And Microsoft would send you CDs. They would send you CDs. Every month, they would send you a CDs of all the white papers and like new programs that had come out. And then if you had a problem with your infrastructure, with your Microsoft stuff, you would type a question. So you would install like this index into your computer. You would type a question into the index. It then would pop up with different white papers that might answer your question. Then you would have to grab the CD that white paper was on. You have to plug that into your computer. And then you got to read a white paper on whatever the hell was going on. Right? That's how it was. And then we got Google, right? Did being able to Google answers to problems end the tech profession? No. Again, Stack Overflow. You know the only thing in the world worse than Stack Overflow? Not having Stack Overflow. Right? Think about it. When I was doing a lot of my work, we didn't have digital the online boards or whatever for solving a lot of these problems. We were just winging it. And now we have things like Stack Overflow. Has it gotten rid of being a technology professional? No. Right? They're just simply new tools that we've been given that allows us to move forward. And the thing to be thinking about, right? Again, as AI comes through, and again, the recession that's coming, is that one of the things you also consider is, again, do you want this to be your career, right? There's a difference between a job and a career, and even where you want to be in the organizational stack in technology companies. And so one of the things to consider is, as AI comes down the pike, is this the time for you to tap out and say, I'm done? I learned JavaScript. I struggled through Node.js. I just cannot deal with having to have a comprehension of 15 different languages just so I can be able to solve problems. Right? Maybe it's time for you to become a recruiter or a founder or a technical co-founder so you don't have to be bothered with that kind of crap anymore. So anyways, that's just some things to be thinking about. Again, with this whole idea that AI is going to end coding, it's going to change things. Yes. Will AI take away your job? There is a good chance it will. Will AI take away opportunities that you thought that you were going to have in a couple years? Yeah, it probably will. But guess what, kiddos? Guess what, little buckos? That's what our field is. That is literally what our field is. Again, I remember when AWS came out, right? Back when I still had my company, AWS came out. And I crap you not, I was sitting there with one of my employees and we were trying to figure out how to upload files to AWS. True story, right? So again, we have been used to GoDaddy. Again, we use virtualization and all that kind of stuff. So AWS comes out, so we're told, right, this is the cloud infrastructure that Amazon uses, blase, blase, blase. So I'm like, okay, fair enough, fine enough. Let me go play with it. And I'm sitting there, I'm talking to one of my employees. I'm like, yeah, I hate to sound stupid here, but yeah, what are the FTP credentials to Amazon? I don't understand how to FTP my files up to AWS. And it was like, oh, I don't think you FTP files up to AWS. I think there's a whole different way of getting files up there. It's like, what? Fudge. And that's how that was 15, 16 years ago. Now AWS has taken over however much of the cloud infrastructure that's out there. And so that's the kind of thing to be thinking about. Again, like think about this with Exchange servers, right? I say something about Exchange servers. Outlook. I am still an Outlook fanboy. I will still love Outlook until the day I die. There was something called Zobni. There was the Zobni extension to Microsoft Outlook. If I could get Outlook and Zobni back, I'd just be a happy boy. Anyways, so Outlook is the client email software that Microsoft has had. Anyways, an Exchange server was the email server that you had in your corporations. Right, so anyways, I had a buddy of mine, and she passed the Exchange server exams. And apparently, she said these were the hardest exams she ever had to take, right, dealing with Exchange server. Because Exchange server has just a massive amount of configurations. It has real security problems going on with it. And then it has database, so basically where all the data is stored, and it was in databases. So then you had to synchronize the databases amongst multiple Exchange servers so that you had fault tolerance or whatever else, right? And do you know what you do in 2025? You go to Office 365 and you say, I need another employee, and you swipe credit card and you give Microsoft another $10 a month. So think about this. Back in 2005, in order to have email services for your corporation and to get certified doing for Exchange server, it was one of the hardest tests that technology professionals ever went through. And now in 2025, if you want email services for your corporation, you swipe a credit card. Does that mean there's no technology professionals anymore? No, don't be stupid. Things changed, things moved on. The people that have a career in technology moved on to the next thing, and the people that were just making an easy buck for a while, retired, or they went on to their next venture. Right? So anyways, there you go. Some long-winded stuff. But none of this matters. Because, Indians, they took all the coding jobs back in 2005 anyway. Right? We all know the last time anybody in the United States learned JavaScript was 2005. Obviously. But anyways, I just get frustrated. It is weird. Because again, I'm getting close to 50. I'm getting close. Like, I could literally have a kid with the kids at this point. That's bizarre. And I just look back at my career. I look back at my career, and then I look back at what people I think are my contemporaries, and I'm just like, what the hell are you people talking about? Have you been awake for the past 30 years? Did you just... Have you not dealt with the same crap that I've dealt with? Didn't we all go through the dot-com boom and bust? Didn't we all go through the Great Recession? Didn't we all go through the rise of the internet and the rise of Web 2.0 and the rise of mobile and the rise of Web 3.0? Haven't we seen blockchain come and blockchain fail and VR come and VR fail and all the rest? Like, anyways, so there you go. If you want to be a technology professional, don't worry. This career is going to exist for a long time. What are you going to be doing in 20 years? Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? You'll be using technology to solve problems. That's all I can tell you. Again, should you learn coding? Yes. God's sakes, yes. Don't be stupid. Again, most of these programming, that's what's frustrating thing now. Again, if you're talking about like old school programming languages, like assembly language, but anyways, Python you can learn in 40 hours. PHP, don't learn PHP. You can learn that in 40 hours. C#, probably 40 to 60 hours, depending on what you're learning to do with it. Node.js, again, probably about 60 hours for that. Rust, well, Rust will probably take you a little bit longer. It might not go with Rust route. But anyways, you can go out there, you can learn in less than a month, you can learn a programming language and actually be able to do valuable things with that programming language, and then you'll understand how programming works. So that in the future, even if you have AI create programs for you, you understand what is supposed to occur, so that hopefully if it spits out some garbage code, you understand what the problems are. So yes, tech careers are gonna be fine enough. It's gotta be the crap show it's always been. Eli! Is going into technology going to be a safe, secure, well-paid, well-respected career? Hell no. But, you know, it's been like that for a long time. Again, like, think about this. Like, when I was working, again, in the corporate world, one of the managers at one of the facilities I worked at, he was a general manager for the facility, and he made less money than I did. He was at least 10 years older than I was, made less money than I did. And the funny part was, he had actually gotten his computer science degree. He had gotten his computer science degree in the 1980s. And do you know why he stopped doing computer science? Because he couldn't afford to keep doing computer science. In the 1980s, basically, computer scientists were getting paid about the equivalent of $20,000 a year. And he finally had to say, I really like computers, but I gotta pay a mortgage. So he went off to do other things. That's the real world about our career. So anyways, we have booms, we have busts, new things come out and then changes everything, right? The technology job is dead. Long live the technology job. Anyways, with that, see y'all later.